Volunteers are your campaign's most valuable resource. And so often we look at donors or voters or other external stakeholders and think that they are the priority and spend more time focusing there. Whereas like you all really have lifted up that like the importance of volunteers. And so it's worth investing that time, that support, that effort into them because of how much that they give back. Let's say you recruit some great volunteers, you have them. How do you retain your volunteers and then keep increasing their involvement and their responsibilities? I know often people struggle with getting a bunch of great volunteers and then them sort of not, them sort of floating away or not being engaged enough to really stay with the campaign in the long haul. So what's your advice to really keeping those volunteers on board and helping them become more a part of what you're doing?
So that's the big question, right? And I think that I've answered that on campaigns in a way that's really simple. I think part of it is you're cultivating an experience for folks, right? You want them to come in and feel a part of something, and people don't like to come in and they're just sitting, they're waiting, they're wasting time. They feel like they're not actually doing something that's contributing to the campaign. And a lot of times that is what will cause people to not come back, is they feel like they actually aren't doing anything and they could be spending their time better elsewhere. So the one thing I always recommend is to make sure that you have like an onboarding for folks, so that it's as soon as you come into the door, they're greeted, they get a little tour, they're sat down somewhere, you get them pizza or some snacks, something for them, because we need to feed people, right? That's really important culturally. Like that, for me, that is something that I do not ask people to do anything, especially if not for free, if we're not going to have a little snack or something for them to enjoy in the meantime, right? And then just make sure that like they feel comfortable with everything they're doing. I remember I was working on a state Senate race back in 2016. And one woman was just so uncomfortable with the responses she was getting on the phone. She literally begged me to do anything else. So we shifted her because we just realized that she didn't really like to talk to people, but she was phenomenal with data. She would do data entry. She'd do it all day. She'd do it all night. She would send text messages. So we just figured out a way to pivot to put her somewhere she would be comfortable. And that's the other piece, is make sure their experience, they have a positive experience, and make sure that you're putting people where their skill sets are being tapped into, right? I'll never forget, I may or may not have broken my supervisor's laptop when we were working in South Florida on Andrew Gillum's campaign. And one of our volunteers actually fix computers for a living. And he was like, he's like, just give it to me. I'll totally figure it out and handle the things. And you can consider that like an in-kind donation. But make sure you document those things, right? So like people want to do more, especially when they believe in something. And so they'll do the phone calls, they'll do the door knocking. But if they have other skill sets, make sure you're taking the time to find out what those skill sets are and you're tracking that somewhere, because you never know when that'll come up and when you can use it and really have them tap into the campaign and really get to shine. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Brittany, before we get to Elaine and Lucy's answers on this question, I'm curious how you collect that initial information from volunteers and also encourage that feedback. So the woman that just didn't like making phone calls, how did you set up a situation that she was comfortable giving that feedback and there was a loop there that was possible?
Right. So I naturally just like to have a tendency to check in on folks anyway as they're doing their work. So for me, it was a small group of about 10 or 15 people. So I was just walking around the office. Whoever is connecting with folks, who's the point, who's greeting them, doing the onboarding, that person needs to be checking in on them, especially if you're doing phone banking. Because sometimes, especially like the more that we move away from house phones, landlines, people can be really hostile because you never know where you're actually connecting with them. And it's important to make sure that people are prepared for that, especially if they've never done phone banking before. So really just having those initial conversations with folks, talking to them while they're eating, while they're taking breaks, getting a sense of who they are, what they like to do. You pick up on those kinds of things, right? People are happy to share about themselves. So it really is kind of just like a fluid organizing conversation that you have. And then at the end of the night, when folks are debriefing, you have your staffers kind of giving you, oh, well, this person, I remember she lives in this part of the district and she knows this person and that person and is willing to do this, right? That's where so you have notes next to each person. when we're calling volunteers to come back again. So it's tracking their skill sets, their desires, all the things that are important about them that are relevant to the campaign.
I love that. That's so great. So you just keep cultivating them and supporting them. Don't just bring them in and give them a task and let them go. They are there for you. Yeah, I love Elaine's face. So maybe Elaine, let's move it over to you. What are your best tactics?
I have things to say. Well, first, I would just want to lift up what Brittany said, especially about briefing and debriefing volunteers and having those conversations with people. I think one of the most important ways we can cultivate good volunteer operations on a campaign is to actually build relationships, real, authentic ones with the people who are involved, right? So we want to train them, and training your volunteers is setting them up for success, and setting them up for success is treating them with kindness and respect. And that is something we should be doing for every person who interacts with the campaign. And I like to give people a little like hit of serotonin when they come in, like they should be greeted with joy. You should be always expressing your gratitude. They could be doing literally anything else but being there supporting you. So making sure that they're always thanked. And we need to invest in the people that we have supporting a campaign. So making sure they're trained, briefing them, even if they've door knocked or been on the phones every single day that week, something might have changed on the campaign. There could be a new endorsement. There could be, a change in the script because a different issue arose in the campaign. So making sure that they are aware that they're going to talk about the campaign in a new or different way. And then also debriefing them is incredibly important. So, the two questions that I always ask volunteers when they're done with their shift, I don't ever let them just go home. Like, even if they're not going to physically come back to a place, I always want to check in on them either on the phone or via text message, and ask them, what was your most challenging conversation and what was your best conversation? And that's not only going to tell you a lot about the skills and experiences that the volunteer is having, but it's also just going to inform the campaign so well in what voters are telling you as well. So, given all of that, the last thing I'll say about it is that volunteers need to see how they are contributing to the success of the campaign. And I'm a big fan of visually representing this. So, if I have a physical campaign space, I like to use the colored sticky notes are like my favorite tool. I put volunteers' names on them. The more shifts they do, the higher up the wall they get, the cooler a color they get. But just making sure that they, can see if you have 50 door knocking shifts, they should have 50 blocks on the wall and put their name in it, right? And you're like, this is what we accomplished together. We knocked 3,000 doors in a weekend because you knocked your 50 and this person knocked their 50. And seeing themselves in that success is really what's going to keep them coming back. And the gratitude piece is going to make them feel like they're really valued and they are contributing in a positive way. People are addicted to that, so.
Oh, I love that. That visualization idea is so great to just really give them that to grab onto. Lucy, anything you'd like to add to that?
Y'all have covered so much good stuff. I think I would just quickly add that those visualizations can also happen online if you're in an environment where you don't have an office or folks are volunteering more remotely. And similarly, like a text message while, folks are out on the doors, just to like, hey, checking in, how's it going, can go a long way towards helping people feel like you're present and supported, even if you're not like literally right next to them. And I think to Brittany's point, those conversations are so vital. And I'll just share a similar anecdote, which is when I was an organizer, I had Barbara, my data queen, who similarly would sit there every single day and put in so much data for me and would never talk to a voter. And that's okay because she's magic at Vote Builder. And, just a few weeks ago, I had a campaign that I'm advising who's drowning in data. And I picked up the phone and I called Barbara and I said, hey, I have this race. This candidate's super amazing. I think you love her. Would you be up for doing the same thing again? And she was like, of course, count me in. And that's because we had a real relationship. like we actually got to know each other and we care about each other. And I know what her motivations are and why she's in this work. And so just wanted to add that anecdote to like double click on what the two of you already explained beautifully.
That's such a great example. And what I love about all of you have really brought up and prioritized here is volunteers are your campaign's most valuable resource. And so often we look at donors or voters or other external stakeholders and think that they are the priority and spend more time focusing there. Whereas like you all really have lifted up that like the importance of volunteers. And so it's worth investing that time, that support, that effort into them because of how much that they give back. And that is so key and awesome to see all those kind of different examples of how you do that.
Hi, I'm Jan Getchens, instructional designer at NDTC. For more, check out our other videos by clicking here and here. Thanks for watching.